Hello everybody and warm welcome to the yearly 8 online conference entitled Ready for the Future, Visions and Challenges, a title more current than we would have all thought just some hours ago. The conference is organized by the Society of Early Childhood Intervention and the European Association on Early Childhood Intervention, yearly 8, with the support of the Czech Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs and under the auspices of the Abacus Endowment Fund. We are very pleased with the great international interest, as we are already being watched by several hundreds of people from numerous countries, with more joining every second. The conference is therefore translated into English, Czech, Spanish, Serbian and Russian, and is also recorded. We will first listen to a series of 3 pre-recorded contributions. During them you can ask questions to the chat in English. From 12 there will be a live broadcast of the discussion forum where you can meet all speakers and members of the yearly 8 board. Now I would like to ask the conference organizer, director of the Prague branch of the Society for Early Childhood Intervention, and yearly 8 member Jitka Barlova for a few opening remarks. But before I do that, please let me tell you that we all woke this morning to the very different world. World which is trying to cope with the reality of war it hasn't seen for decades. Jitka's opening remarks on behalf of yearly 8 would therefore be different than they would have been yesterday. Jitka, please.
Hi to everyone. As yearly 8, we are more than 10 years cooperating with our Ukrainian colleagues and friends, and now we are very worried about what's happening right now. We will pray and support them in our thoughts, and we will keep contact with them. We all need to focus on peace and freedom in the whole world.
Jitka Barlova, thank you for now. We are delighted that the key speaker of today's conference is Tim Moore, a world well-known child psychologist and early childhood expert from Australia. Tim's approximately 50 minutes lecture will open now our conference.
Hello there, my name's Tim Moore. I'm a Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for Community Child Health, and it's a great honour to be invited to present here to your conference. I'd much rather be there in person, but in these difficult times we will have to make do. The topic today is the evidence base in early childhood intervention services, how to choose and use effective strategies. My professional background is I'm a child psychologist. I've had an involvement in early childhood intervention services for 40 years as a practitioner and a manager and researcher. I want to do something that we Australians need to do, which is to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I live and work. You'll see down the bottom this acknowledgement. This land has never been ceded to the traditional owners, who are the Boonwurrung people of the Eastern Kulin Nations. So I wish to pay my respects to their ancestors and elders, past and present. I'm going to show the outline of what we're going to present, and just to say to you that there will be a paper that has all the references and details in it, to save you taking notes. Here's our outline. We're going to look at forms of evidence first of all. Then we're going to have a detailed look at some of the forms of evidence: biological and developmental evidence about children, evidence about family functioning and development, evidence about effective service delivery, evidence-based practice, evidence-informed decision-making, best practices in early childhood intervention, and come to some conclusions. So let's start. Forms of evidence. We often think about evidence as being something that is proven by science and that we might call evidence-based practice. But there is, in fact, many different forms of evidence. And here are those that are of most relevance for early childhood intervention. First of all, biological and developmental evidence, what we know about children with disabilities and without disabilities, how they develop and learn. We have what we might call socio-ecological evidence, by which I mean what we know about the factors that shape and change family functioning and development. We have people's lived experience, people's direct experience and views about what matters to them. That is a form of evidence. We have service delivery evidence. We know a lot about effective ways of working with families. Then we have published research findings. That's the one that we often think of first. Evidence-based practice, randomized controlled trials and systematic reviews. Then there is practice wisdom. What practitioners know about what works with particular families and contexts. Then there is First Nations and other belief systems. We're particularly conscious of it in Australia because we house the population with the longest continuous living presence on the planet, 40,000 years or more of continuous civilization. And we need to take on board their beliefs. And then there's data, audits and evaluations and feedback from families. Okay, let's have a look at some biological evidence. How children develop and learn. The first 1,000 days from conception to the end of the second year is when we are most developmentally plastic, and learning and adaptation actually begins in the womb. The fetus makes adaptation to the environment in the womb that can have long-term implications for health and development. Early experiences can influence later health and developmental outcomes through a process of biological embedding, and young children develop through their relationships with the most important people in their lives. And this learning is cumulative. Skills that are acquired early form the basis for later skill development. And children learn in every environment in which they spend time, adapting to the experience and exposures that these environments provide. And the principal way in which they learn is through what Jerry Mahoney calls massive practice. That is, having multiple opportunities to practice functional skills in everyday learning. I hope you're beginning to see in this some of the lessons that have implications for early childhood intervention. Performance improves with practice, so a major aim should be to provide as many opportunities as possible to actively practice key skills. And this is best done by capitalizing on naturally occurring opportunities that arise in everyday home, early childhood environment, and education and care, and community settings. So what are the conditions that children need to learn these things? We can have a look at the nurturing care environment, which is provided by the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the World Bank Group. There is an Australian version called the Nest Wellbeing Agenda, and there is one that I have worked on myself earlier this year, published Core Care Conditions for Children. These all describe the conditions that children need in order to develop well. So how do children with disabilities develop and learn? Are they different from other children? First thing to note is that they have the same needs as all children. They have needs for attachment, nurturance, emotional responsiveness, care, safety and security, etc. These crucial relationships have the same impact on development as they do on other children. So they are the things we need to focus on. But they may have difficulties having these needs realized because of the nature of their disabilities. They may initiate interactions less frequently or give cues that are more subtle and difficult to read. So we may have to help parents to read these. Children with disabilities may also have reduced access to the range of environments and experiences that other children have, and fewer opportunities to participate. So the key point to understand about developmental disabilities is that they are developmental. That is, they're not fixed, but they develop with the child. Therefore, starting as early as possible is paramount, rather than waiting for the child to be eligible for a service. Another key point is that there are no absolute cut-off points for any disabilities. All cut-off points are essentially arbitrary. And the extent to which a child is or a person is disabled is largely a function of the social and physical environment that allows them to do and to be. So the implications of this body of evidence about children's development, implications for early intervention services are these. Start early, focus on building attachment and responsive caregiving. That's a fundamental thing that we should be doing. Provide children with multiple opportunities to practice functional skills in everyday environments. Provide children with the same range of social and learning opportunities and settings as other children. And ensure children have meaningful participation in home, early childhood education and care, and community activities. Participation is what we should be aiming at, because it is the engine of development. Okay, let's turn to our second body of evidence, family functioning and development. What do we know about families and how they develop? Children rely on their families to provide them with the core care conditions they need to flourish, and the ability of families to provide these conditions partly depends upon their own internalized models of parenting, which they derive from their own experiences of being parented, but it also depends upon the extent to which their own core conditions are met. Families are dependent upon the conditions that they need for their flourishing. Just as children need conditions to support them, so families need conditions. And their parenting and family functioning can be compromised when these conditions are not met. Here's a paper, again, worked on earlier this year, that describes these conditions that parents need. And so part of what we need to think about as early interventionists is how to meet the conditions that families need in order that they can meet the conditions their children need. So what about families of children with developmental disabilities? Are they different? Well, once again, they have the same core needs as other families. They need nurturing care and support themselves. They need material basics. They need opportunities to participate in community activities. And they may have difficulties meeting these needs, having these needs realized, because of the nature of the child's disabilities and the constraints these place upon the family's ability to work and to participate in community activities. So we need to be thinking about the extent to which families may be hindered from participating fully in communities by virtue of having a child with a disability. The extent to which a family of a child with a developmental disability to participate and flourish depends upon what the social community and service environments allow them to do and to be. This is the same point that we might make about children themselves. The environment either constrains your ability to participate, or it helps it, or it facilitates it. So we need to create environments that facilitate participation. The parental journey is something we need to think about. Parents go from disempowerment to empowerment, from confusion to knowing, and from distress to transcendence. And this journey is more intense than it is for most other families. So we need to know how to support parents to make that journey. There is also a tension in families between wanting to change or fix the child or the disability, or accepting the child and helping them. Here's what one parent had to say. In her account of living with her child, Iris Grace, this mother said, "I don't actually believe in the concept of curing. I don't think you work with the child. I think you work with the child to help them handle life, but I'm not sure you can take the autism away. It's always going to be part of Iris." It's an interesting comment, isn't it? Every parent has a tension between wanting to fix their child, as it were, to make their child into something, versus accepting the child as they are and helping them. That dilemma is particularly acute for parents of a child with a disability. The urge to want to get rid of the disability, to make it go away, is a very powerful one, but not necessarily a helpful one. So, beg your pardon, I've gone forward rather than backwards. Implications for services from this body of knowledge. The core task is to build parental and caregiver capabilities. This is the overall aim of early childhood intervention, is to ensure that parents and other key caregivers are able to provide young children who have developmental disabilities with experiences and opportunities that help the children gain and use functional skills they need to participate. That's the aim of the exercise. We need to ensure that parents have positive support networks, including the opportunities of support from other parents. We need to ensure that the family as a whole are considered in family support plans. We need to help families establish routines that work for all family members. And we need to ensure that external challenges to parental and family functioning are met. That is, that they've got the basics, that they don't have other major issues that are going to compromise family functioning. Let's turn to another body of evidence that is relevant for early intervention. This is the evidence about effective service delivery. We actually know a lot about this. We know that all human services are relational. They're dependent to a much greater extent than other forms of service on the quality of the relationships between the practitioners and parents. Insights regarding the importance of these interpersonal relationship processes come from a variety of services. So this is a kind of convergent evidence. There's lessons from vulnerable families, psychotherapy, doctor-patient relationships, effective help-giving practices, evidence about family-centered practice, evidence about family partnership training, lessons from co-design and productions. All of those tell us, converge upon the same story. What they're telling us is this. Here's an example. This is from a piece of work we did a while ago. It's what vulnerable and marginalised families need from services. This is what we've learned. They want services that help them feel valued and understood, and that are non-judgmental and honest. They want services that have respect for their inherent human dignity and are responsive to their needs rather than being prescriptive. They want services that allow them to feel in control and help them feel capable, competent, and empowered. They want services that are practical and help them meet their self-defined needs. They want services that are timely, providing help when they feel they need it, not weeks or months or even years later. And they want continuity of care. They value the sense of security that comes from having a long-term relationship with the same service provider. I'm going to skip the next two slides. Thank you. I think we're going to run out of time if we try to do those. Okay, so I'm going to jump to this slide. We have learned that regardless of the focus or content of interventions, effective programs are relationship-based, involve partnerships between professionals and parents, target goals that parents see as important, provide parents with choices regarding strategies, build parental competencies, are non-stigmatizing, demonstrate cultural awareness and sensitivity, and maintain continuity of care. These variables appear to be of particular importance for families experiencing the most vulnerabilities, including families of children with disabilities. They're less likely to make use of professional services that don't possess these qualities. So overall, the evidence is clear. How services are delivered as important as what is delivered. Outcomes are not simply the result of advice, take this drug or play with your child, but are determined also by the ways in which the advice is given. The manner in which support is provided, offered, or procured influence whether the support has positive, neutral, or negative consequences. So relationships have a dual function. They are an end in themselves in that they're positive for people, but they also are a means to an end. They are the medium through which we can transmit effective strategies to help families change. Having a positive relationship is therefore a necessary but not sufficient condition for improving outcomes. You also have to have effective strategies that you use. So the key delivery skills you need for relationship practices are relationship skills, effective ways of helping people change, effective ways of building capabilities, and there are models for helping us guide how to get training in those. And particularly the family-centered practice approach and the family partnership model, one from the US and one from the UK. So the key lessons about effective service delivery for implications for early intervention services are this. How services are delivered is as important as what is delivered. Building effective relationships with parents is the first step to effective delivery and helping. By partnering with parents, early childhood intervention services can become more effective. The combination of parental and professional expertise produces better solutions and outcomes than either could achieve on their own. All early childhood intervention practitioners would benefit from training in the key service delivery skills in relationship building, helping people change, promoting capabilities. You'll find details of resources to help you in those in the paper that accompanies this presentation. Now we turn to another body of evidence, and this is what we first tend to think of when we're thinking about evidence-based practice, when we think about evidence at all. This is evidence-based practice. Evidence-based practice is usually understood as the use of programs and interventions that have been proven to be efficacious through a particular research methodology. It's called randomized controlled trials and longitudinal follow-ups and systematic reviews. It's argued that we shouldn't be using any interventions that have not been subjected to these tests and shown to be efficacious. So we get arguments like this in this book called Randomistas. Across medicine, business and government, there's no simpler or more powerful tool for finding out what works than a randomized experiment. And there is simply no better way to determine the counterfactual, which means what happens if you do nothing, than to random allocate participants into two groups, one that gets a treatment and the other that does not. That's the argument that we hear, that we should only be using methods that have been proven in this way. Systematic, there's been lots of work in early childhood intervention. Systematic reviews have been done of all sorts, all aspects of early childhood intervention. Here are some examples. Here are some recent ones I've looked at. Interventions for children with autism disorder. There are a string of reviews there. Interventions for children with cerebral palsy, more reviews. Occupational therapy for young children with developmental disabilities. Speech therapy interventions for early developmental delays. Interventions for preterm infants. Naturalistic instructional approaches. Primary care interventions to promote early childhood development. Coaching for parents. So all these are reviews of the evidence, and you'll find lots of valuable information in those in your particular area. And RCTs, randomized controlled trials, and systematic reviews can also show what does not work. So for instance, we know that vaccines don't cause autism. We've done randomized control trials of that and proved conclusively that they are not associated with the incidence of autism. We need to distinguish between interventions which have not been sufficiently tested to know if they can be effective and programs that have been tested and have been shown to be ineffective or harmful. So there's plenty of research that we simply don't have enough that have never been tested enough to know whether they're effective. There are many limitations of randomized controlled trials. They're not the be-all and end-all. They can be interpreted narrowly. Sometimes, at least in my country, we get presented with lists and told to choose lists of proven intervention and asked to choose from them. This has been described as a parody of evidence-based practice. Programs that have been proven to be effective in controlled trials are not so easy to implement and therefore not as effective in real-world situations, which are invariably less well controlled than the conditions under which the original trials were conducted. Another problem is that we're dependent upon the trials that have been conducted. Systematic reviews often conclude that there's not enough evidence. One of those reviews that I listed just before, the review by O'Toole and colleagues of parent-mediated intervention for Down syndrome, concluded they could only find a few reviews and trials that were of sufficient quality, and these were not sufficiently high quality for them to be able to draw any conclusions whatsoever. So some of the reviews may often, more often than not, come up with that kind of conclusion. RCTs are complicated, time-consuming and demanding to run, and there's never going to be enough RCTs of early child intervention practices to provide definitive guidance. They're not well suited to answering questions about human services addressing complex problems. They're best at answering questions about the efficacy of interventions where we can control all the variables except the treatment variables. We are in the midst of a prime illustration of the virtues of randomized control trials. The vaccines for COVID all being done by randomized control trials in natural circumstances. And we're getting a very rapid return because we've got such large numbers. So that's the virtue of this approach. But more complex problems, such as poverty or child abuse, are not easily answered by randomized control trials. And they can't answer questions about individual children. A randomized control trial cannot tell you what a particular child or family might need. Right? RCTs are really only valid for the populations on which they were originally trialled, and their application to other populations needs to be tested. Properly understood, evidence-based practice is multidimensional. RCTs often neglect the other dimensions, such as the ones that we were looking at when we were talking about service delivery. The relational qualities are often ignored by RCTs. We need a way of reconciling this form of evidence-based practice with the service-based evidence, the practice-based evidence we were looking at before. Evidence-based practice is multidimensional and involves integrating three sources of evidence. Evidence informs programs, that's what we've just been looking at. Evidence-based processes, the skills and techniques and strategies used by practitioners when interacting with parents, and client and professional values, the values and beliefs that parents and professionals bring to the working relationship. So here's a way of thinking about what we should call evidence-informed practice. It's a multidimensional process that integrates these different forms of evidence. So summing up what we know here about what are the implications for early child intervention services, we need to be mindful of the available evidence from randomized control trials. You definitely need to know what's in that. Practitioners need to familiarize themselves with the evidence base in your particular discipline. Early child intervention services should try to reduce the gap between the publication of new evidence and the adoption of new practices, but we can't rely on evidence-based research alone when we're choosing intervention strategies for families. We must broaden the evidence base on which we make decisions. We need a way of reconciling evidence-based practice and service delivery evidence. So let's have a look at a way of doing that. I would call this evidence-informed decision-making. Here's the rationale. A framework for human services should include the following element. We need to align program content and methodology with client values. We must work with the values of the people that we are trying to support. We must address what they see as most important to them, because if we don't, they are less likely to pay attention to us. We need to be attuned and responsive to the views and circumstances of the people we work with, and we need to engage them as partners. We need to use a purposeful process of joint decision-making, of a way of identifying goals to work on and choosing strategies. And we need to be able to offer parents the choice of a range of strategies and program modules to address the goals that are important to them. So I've had a go at developing an evidence-informed decision-making process. It's described in these two papers, and it looks like this. So up the top, you will see this is the joining, and as we go round the circle clockwise, there is a series of steps to help you in working with families. These steps look like this. You begin by building a partnership relationship. The key qualities are the ones we looked at before: engagement, attunement, and responsiveness. And the key skill is reflective listening. Then you explore what outcomes are important to the family. Explore what their values and circumstances are. What is achievable? What achievable change would make most difference to them? Agree upon what outcomes. What is going to be something that will be important to the family that they are able to work on and that would make a difference to them? Then we can have a look at exploring what strategies they already know of. We've got to build upon family strengths. So explore with them what strategies they know about or use, and share with them information about what evidence-based strategies are available. You'll notice that we've held off from talking about the strategies that we know about from science until this point. And we only put them on the table with parents. We're sharing with them along with the evidence that they bring to the table about what they know works for their child. We're going to then agree upon what strategies are going to be used, and we're going to monitor the process of it. We're going to support the parents as they try those strategies. And then we're going to review that. We're going to, in the next visit, over the next visit, but as they try out the particular strategies that they've agreed to use, we monitor them, we monitor the outcomes, and then ultimately review the outcomes again at the end, and repeat the cycle. So this is a way of helping families, of working with families in a way which reconciles the service delivery strategies that we looked at earlier with evidence-based strategies. And then we need to engage authentically with families, establish and maintain a collaborative relationship, strengthen family capacities, respond to family priorities, and get feedback. I'd love to talk more about getting feedback. It's such an important thing, not enough time at this point. So at the heart of this framework lies the partnership relationship. It's the medium through which practical help is provided and positive change is made. And a partnership involves shared power and decision-making, shared actions and responsibilities, and shared information. We recognize that parents are expert in their own particular family, children, and circumstances, whereas practitioners are experts in their particular discipline and what that tells them about families and children in general. We need to blend these two forms of knowledge and expertise. When we do, we get synergistic effects. That is, it's greater than the sum of the parts. The resulting actions are more effective and powerful than any plan that either partner could produce on their own. So summing up, implications for early childhood intervention services. Evidence-informed decision-making is one way of reconciling evidence about effective programs and effective service delivery practices. In this framework, the questions of what intervention strategies are to be used is not considered until family values and goals have been understood. The nature of effective strategies we need depends upon the family goals and capacities. That's what we're addressing. The strategies need to be ones that are able to be implemented by families in the course of everyday routines. That's what the evidence tells us. And values trump evidence. If the proposed strategy is not acceptable or usable by families, then it doesn't matter what kind of evidence supports it, they're not going to use it. So now let's turn to putting all this together. and looking at some issues of best practice in early childhood intervention. There are several formulations of best practice, and obviously you have one yourself. This is the Early Aid one, recommended practices in early childhood intervention, a guidebook for professionals. Developed, first of all, by our Portuguese colleagues and recently made available in a number of languages. I hope you are all familiar with that document, and that will be the first one to turn to. There are others, of course. This is the American model. Division of Early Childhood in the US has a set of recommended practices for early childhood intervention. And in Australia, we have our own national guidelines for best practice. With your forgiveness, I'm going to use that one to illustrate how all of these themes we've been addressing fit together. So in this particular model, we've got 8 key best practices: family-centered and strength-based practice, culturally responsive practice, inclusive and participatory practice, natural environments, collaborative teamwork, capacity building practice, the evidence-based standards, and outcomes approach. Let's have a look at these in turn and think about them in terms of the evidence that we've been looking at in this presentation. So family-centered practice and strength-based practice. It's a set of values, skills, and behaviours and knowledge that recognise the central role of families in children's lives. And the evidence we've looked at about how children develop and the role that families play in this has testified to that. The evidence that we've looked at in relationship to service delivery has demonstrated the importance of family-centered practice and of using a strength-based approach. Culturally responsive practice is a second principle, and this creates welcoming and culturally inclusive environments where all families are encouraged to participate in and contribute to children's learning and development. This principle is supported by some of the service delivery evidence we looked at, the importance of taking account of the family circumstances when we're working with families. If we fail to do this, we fail to engage with and respect family values, then we will be less effective in supporting them. Inclusive and participatory practices. This recognises that every child, regardless of their needs, has the right to participate fully in their family and community life and to have the same choices, opportunities, and experiences as other children. We actually didn't get a chance to look at this body of knowledge about inclusion, but we have evidence there that inclusive practices are beneficial for children, more beneficial than segregation, and that children with developmental disabilities will develop more from having those opportunities. Mixing with other children, children with disabilities, like all children, learn from every environment in which they spend time and need opportunities to mix with other children. That's the evidence base from how children learn. Engaging children in natural environments is the fourth principle. It's promoting inclusion through participation in daily routines at home, in the community, and early childhood settings. And the evidence regarding how children develop and the role that parents play supports that principle. Collaborative teamwork. This is where families and professionals work together as a team, and where one team member nominated as a key worker. So the evidence for this comes from the service delivery evidence that we looked at. The importance of family partnership and the importance of having a key worker. Capacity building is the next principle, And this is the building of child, family, and professional community through coaching and collaborative teamwork. It means building family skills to be able to support their children. Evidence-based, well, that's the evidence-based practice we were looking at. We need to know all our information. We need to know what is available in that space about evidence-based practice. And we need finally to focus on outcomes that parents want for their child and family and on identifying the skills needed to achieve these outcomes. If we don't focus on the outcomes that families are interested in and that are important to them, we will fail to engage them effectively and we will be less effective in helping them help their child. So, some conclusions to come to at the very end. First, this is the Hippocratic Oath that doctors sign up to. Primum non nocere. First, do no harm. It's important that we do not use strategies that are known to be ineffective or harmful. We're dealing with children at the most vulnerable point in their lives, and therefore the onus is upon us to ensure that we are using effective strategies and not using ineffective ones. Knowing what will work best for a particular child or family cannot be determined by formal scientific processes alone. In deciding how best to support children with developmental disabilities and their families, we need to draw on a range of sources of evidence, including the views, values, and experiences of those we are seeking to help. Using an evidence-informed decision-making framework can help ensure that we take account of family values and knowledge before we introduce our own knowledge and values. And we'll finish there. We haven't actually considered all the sources of evidence that are looked at the very beginning. We didn't look at the lived experience particularly. We didn't look at the data. Perhaps that's for another time. There are my contact details if you need to follow up with anything. Thank you for listening and good luck with the rest of your conference and with your work with families of children with developmental disabilities. Thank you.
And that was Tim Moore from Australia. We will be able to meet him almost in person through an online connection in the discussion section of our today's Yearly 8 conference. In recent years, the whole world has faced a new challenge in the form of a pandemic. The situation was also reflected in the reality of early childhood intervention. Jitka Barlová's lecture will now present new methodological procedures on how the Society for Early Childhood Intervention coped with this challenge in the Czech Republic.
Dobrý den, moje jméno je Jitka Barlová a já jsem dneska za vámi přišla s přednáškou na téma nové výzvy pro ranou péči, neboť všichni víme, že současné období na nás klade zvýšené nároky a tak bych vás ráda seznámila s tím, jak jsme v uplynulých 2 letech toto náročné období zvládali. Raná péče v České republice je sociální služba určená rodinám, do kterých se narodilo dítě s postižením a má výrazný terénní charakter. Orientuje se na celou rodinu a řešení její životní situace v každodenní realitě a je orientovaná na mezioborovou interdisciplinární spolupráci. Do tohoto nastavení nám přišla mimořádná situace, tak jako ve vašich zemích, v celém světě. V březnu 2020 přišla COVID pandemie. Jak to všechno u nás začalo? Vláda České republiky vydala opatření,
která ovšem zasáhla v sociální oblasti pouze pobytové služby a orientovala se především na věkovou kategorii seniorů. Rodiny dětí s postižením, především v tom raném věku, byly vlastně zcela opomenuty a v březnu 2020 nastal první lockdown. Týmy poradkyň rané péče se přesunuly do domácích home officeů, na které jsme vlastně v té době nebyli vůbec zvyklé, a nastalo rozhodování, jaká opatření v rámci bezpečnosti našich rodin a i našich týmů bude nutné vlastně zavést. Rozhodovali jsme na úrovni ředitelů pracovišť rané péče Společnosti pro ranou péči dohromady. Vyjednávali jsme podmínky s vládou, s oblastním řízením, s krajskými úřady, s objednavateli sociálních služeb a vlastně nikdo nevěděl, jaká opatření jsou vhodná zavést. Takže naší snahou bylo vlastně zachování maximální služby pro rodinu a co největší bezpečí pro tým i pro koncového uživatele služby. Nakonec jsme s hlavní hygienickou stanicí České republiky se dohodli, že službu raná péče bude vzhledem k situaci nejlépe převést do online prostředí, zachovat maximum podpory koncovým rodinám, ovšem bez vzájemného kontaktu. Což prostě tato situace byla nová výzva pro všechny, nejenom pro pracovníky rané péče, ale i pro rodiny samotné. Chtěli jsme zjišťovat, co můžeme, co umíme, co neumíme vlastně za pochodu, co k tomu potřebujeme, abychom tu službu mohli bezpečně převést a kvalitně do online prostředí. Takže na co jsme vlastně nebyli připraveni, tak byly nové potřeby a nové dovednosti zaměstnanců, nové metodické podklady, jak odvést stejně kvalitní práci v online prostředí. Nebyli jsme připraveni ani materiálně a technicky. Ne všichni poradci rané péče, ne všichni členové týmu měli mobilní technická zařízení, notebooky k tomu, aby mohli ze dne na den pracovat a být v kontaktu jak s týmem, tak s rodinama ve svém domácím prostředí. Změnily se samozřejmě i potřeby klientských rodin, protože v průběhu té pandemie se vlastně ukázalo, že mnoho rodin začalo řešit existenciální problémy. V průběhu té pandemie docházelo k prohloubení sociální izolace. Začali jsme pozorovat zvýšenou podporu nebo zvýšenou potřebu na psychickou podporu jednotlivých členů rodiny a zvýšily se materiální potřeby rodin. Také jsme vlastně v průběhu té pandemie pocítili nutnost vytvoření nových materiálů a metodických postupů. Jednak standardy sociálních služeb v České republice vlastně nás nutí i popsat nějaké nouzové situace, takže jsme vytvořili specifikaci mimořádných situací a také jsme do popisu procesu služby přidali popis metodických postupů při konzultacích, které jsme se učili za pochodu vlastně poskytovat online. Nutné byly návody pro poradkyně, ale i pro klientské rodiny, jak se připojit k online rozhovoru, jak natočit video, které může rodina poslat poradkyni pro rozbor, jak vytvořit návod na práci s pomůckou. Další výzvou bylo začít využívat více sociální sítě, nabídnout škálu aktivit rodinám srozumitelnou formou, nejlépe formou videí přes YouTube kanál nebo přes Facebook. Takže vznikaly ty metodické postupy. Také jsme vlastně online pracovali s týmem. Neustále jsme aktualizovali situaci k pandemické situaci v republice. Nakonec jsme stanovili nějaký predikce a pravidla, která by byla jasná i pro rodiny dětí s postižením, kdy a za jaké situace bude možné se vlastně vrátit k fyzickému kontaktu. Vytvořili jsme pravidla pro to, kdy rodina je do služby přijímána nebo propouštěna, za jakých vlastně podmínek lze dělat třeba vstupní diagnostiku. Co se nám hodně osvědčilo, byl seznam nadací, protože paralelně tím, jak se měnila celá ta situace, reagovaly na to i nadace a nadační fondy. Mnoho z nich vypsalo možnosti podpory, jak technické, tak materiální, nejenom pro sociální služby samotné, ale i pro koncové uživatele rodiny. Takže jsme byli schopni získat například notebooky pro každou poradkyni, ochranné pomůcky pro nás i pro rodiny. A vlastně v průběhu toho času se to technické i metodické zázemí v období pandemie velmi zlepšovalo. Nastavili jsme tedy nové procesy jako nové výzvy v rané péči. Prováděli jsme terénní i online konzultace jako možnou nabídku, podle toho i jaký byl zdravotní stav a aktuální situace v zemi. Terénní konzultace někdy probíhaly bezkontaktně, takže tady na fotce vidíte předávání pomůcek, kdy poradkyně položila tašku k plotu a rodina si ji bezkontaktně vyzvedla. Načež to, jak může pracovat rodina s pomůckami, dostali informaci od poradkyně přes video. Rodina nahrála práci s dítětem a proběhla konzultace po videu. Samozřejmě práce s pomůckama není jedinou součástí té podpory, které se rodině dostává, takže online probíhaly i konzultace s psychologem, s dalšími odborníky, s poradkyní rané péče. Rodina probírala svou aktuální situaci, řešila každodenní starosti tak, jako by to probíhalo při fyzickém kontaktu. Spolupracovali jsme s různými organizacemi, které zajišťovaly dobrovolníky, s nadacemi. Pravidelně jsme aktualizovali a vlastně daleko více využívali kanály sociálních sítí. Dokonce na podzim roku 2020 proběhla kampaň Týden rané péče online a byla vyhodnocena vlastně stejně úspěšná, jako když online nebyla. Online se nám podařilo i setkávání rodin, aby nadále měly rodiny umožněné sdílení svých starostí a peer podporu. Vidíte, jak třeba poradkyně mohla dostat video od rodiny. Poradkyně získala video od maminky a třeba zrakový terapeut byl schopný vyhodnotit práci dítěte s okluzí, Postupně se rodiny učily, jak je potřeba to video technicky zajistit, aby to byl kvalitní záběr pro možnost konzultace. Tady uvidíme poradkyni, jak rozebírá právě takovéhle video s maminkou.
Jak jsme si říkali o tom i zpracování toho zrakového věmu u Lukáška, že je třeba jednak tím, že má teď tu dobrou korekci brýlovou, jestli teda vám to pořád sedí. Já jsem na těch videích nevěděla, že to měl zrovna brýlečky, tak vlastně ale záleží i na tom zpracování, potom na tom vedení do toho mozku. Takže Lukášek může mít právě i s tímhletím potíže, že ten nález na tom mozku tomu odpovídá. A proto i ty podněty, které potřebuje, tak musíme volit. Hodně jednoduché, výrazné, proto i třeba potřebuje delší dobu na to. Nebo věci v pohybu, doprovodit zvukem a tak. Jo, že vlastně to na to ukazuje i sám vlastně.
Tak. Pro představu.
Jak jsme si říkali o tom.
Tak. Takže co jsme se naučili v průběhu pandemie, že příprava na podporu rodin je náročnější, pořád je pro ranou péči zcela zásadní ten fyzický kontakt a práce v přirozeném prostředí rodiny a dítěte s věcmi, které mají doma. Klade tato práce nebo ten typ práce zvýšený nárok na poradce v technické oblasti. Velmi rychle jsme museli vylepšit naše dovednosti. Zvýšený nárok pro rodiče v oblasti vlastně stimulace psychomotorického vývoje svého dítěte, kdy opět nám chybí to přirozené prostředí, ve kterém se dítě pohybuje. Možná o to intenzivněji třeba u rodin dětí se zrakovým postižením. V některých rodinách vlastně došlo k intenzivnější spolupráci s rodinami. Ukázalo se vlastně v průběhu času, že některým rodinám to online prostředí relativně vyhovuje a jsou vlastně rádi za možnost kombinace obojího. Někdy rodina vlastně byla v četnějším kontaktu s poradkyní. Byla nutnost zvýšit supervize a intervize mezi týmem, kdy jsme i pro naše poradce rané péče se snažili zajistit dobrou a častější supervizi, kde by mohli sdílet a dostat náhled na svoji práci a podporu pro sebe samé. A výsledkem vlastně je zavedení online konzultace s rodinou jako jednu z možných forem poskytování sociální služby i za stavu, kdy není vládní opatření ohledně pandemie. V současnosti poradkyně rané péče dále prochází pravidelným antigenním testováním, ať už je to vládou nařízeno nebo není, protože opravdu nechceme ohrozit koncové rodiny. Forma konzultací je vlastně volitelná pro rodiny a podle aktuálních potřeb. Mnoho rodin, samozřejmě i se sourozenci, prochází opakovanými karanténami, někdo je očkovaný, někdo není, takže vlastně ta dohoda, jakou formou se dostane rodině podpora, je zcela individuální. Pravidelné odborné porady se týkají i technického zázemí, technických dovedností, rozbor třeba videí. Vznikly specifické pozice, například ve Společnosti pro ranou péči i krizový intervent, který zajišťoval ty nejakutnější potřeby rodin. A v rodinách se vlastně zaznamenali jsme nová témata, která vlastně se staly součástí každodenní reality. U klientských rodin jsme zaznamenali někdy nižší tlak na osobní setkání, akceptovali online prostředí, vliv témat, ta pandemie na ty témata měla samozřejmě vliv také. Zaznamenali jsme zvýšený zájem o informace k sociální podpoře, k využívání nadací, spousta rodin, která byla na hraně, dejme tomu, ekonomického zajištění, se dostala do krizových situací, kdy potřebovala velmi akutně řešit svoje finanční a ekonomické zázemí. Četnější komunikace na sociálních sítích zhruba až o 20%. Velký pozitivní přínos mělo zapojení tatínků, otců do konzultací, neboť spousta firem přesunula své pracovníky na home office. Také se zvýšily žádosti o setkávání s externími odborníky a pomaličku zaznamenáváme ten návrat k běžnému životu, kdy ta pozitivní věc z pandemie byla vlastně implementována do běžného standardu poskytování sociální služby. Tak. Tímto vám děkuji za pozornost a na mě bude navazovat kolegyně, která vyspovídá rodiče ohledně toho, jak celé nové výzvy s poskytováním rané péče v době pandemie vnímala sama rodina. Takže děkuji a loučím se.
That was Jitka Barlová from the Society for Early Childhood Intervention, or Společnost pro ranou péči in Czech, the organizer of today's online conference. You will also be able to ask her questions in the discussion later on today, or you may pose question in a chat right now. But before we answer these questions, we will also provide you, as Jitka already mentioned, with a parent's view of the provision of early childhood intervention services. Lucie Jalcindak is the mother of 4-year-old Laura, who has a rare genetic disease. In an interview with Petra Mertlová, a methodologist and the head of the Prague branch of the Society of Early Childhood Intervention, she will assess from her point of view how she perceived the support of early childhood intervention in the difficult times of the COVID-19 pandemic and how the situation affected her family.
Dobrý den, vážení diváci, já vás tady vítám. Ráda bych se představila. Já se jmenuji Petra Mertlová, jsem vedoucí pražské pobočky Společnosti pro ranou péči a jsem velice ráda, že tady dneska můžu přivítat Luci Jalcindak, což je vlastně maminka 4,5leté Laury, která má Costello syndrom a vlastně Lucie se svou rodinou s ranou péčí spolupracuje již asi od půl roka. Laury od jejího věku od půl roka, ale aktuálně spolupracují vlastně poslední 2 roky s brněnskou pobočkou Společnosti pro ranou péči. Takže Lucie dneska svolila, že se mnou pobaví o covidové situaci a o tom, jak to zasáhlo její rodinu. Vítám vás, Lucie.
Dobrý den.
Tak jo, já rovnou začnu první otázkou. Poslední 2 roky celý svět řeší pandemii COVID a to, jak to zasáhlo jednotlivé oblasti a lidi a jejich rodiny. A já bych se rovnou zeptala vás, Lucie, jak tato situace nebo pandemie celá zasáhla vaši rodinu. Jak vy to vnímáte?
Naši rodinu pandemie zasáhla hodně, protože Laurinka je rizikový člověk, tím, jak je nemocná a zdravotně zatížená. Takže začátky pandemie nebyly rozhodně lehké, velkou roli hrál strach a nedostatek informací a to dávalo velký prostor pro fantazii, což určitě všichni moc dobře znají. A vzhledem k tomu, že má Laurinka slabou imunitu, i nemocné srdíčko a spoustu dalších přidružených zdravotních problémů, tak jsem se o ní hodně bála. na obě holčičky, protože já mám ještě druhou 6letou holčičku, na ty jsem převážně sama, jejich táta žije ve Skotsku a moji rodiče jsou staří, tudíž také rizikoví a proto to bylo náročné, protože my jsme zůstali víceméně v celkové izolaci, jo? Že jsme nechodili ani nakupovat, nechávali jsme si vozit jídlo a opravdu musím říct, že to bylo těžké, protože i starší dceru jsem vzala ze školky a byli jsme pořád doma nebo v přírodě, omezili jsme styk s lidmi i s rodinou, s přáteli. Opravdu to bylo velmi náročné, musím říct, pro psychiku nás všech, i mě jako mámy, protože fakt jako být pořád s těma dětma, ještě v tom strachu to bylo těžké a pro děti taky, protože se nudili, že jo, a nevěděli, co by. Ale jak už to tak bývá, tak jsme si postupně zvykli, bylo více informací, člověk už se s tím nějak zžil, udělal si v tom nějakou rutinu, bylo méně strachu a nějak se to vracelo do normálu. Asi byl nejhorší ten první půlrok, pak už to bylo dobré. A momentálně jsme v rodině všichni očkovaní, navštěvujeme se, děti chodí do školy, se prostě vzájemně informujeme, že když je někdo nachlazený nebo mu není dobře, tak prostě to zrušíme, ale dodržujeme antikovidové opatření a víc asi dělat nemůžeme, takže člověk by se z toho zbláznil, takže teďka už jsme relativně v klidu a věřím, že to bude v pohodě.
Vlastně pro každého to období té pandemie znamenalo určité změny. Vy jste popsala hlavně zpočátku ty negativní, že vlastně nemohla jste se stýkat s rodinou, s přáteli, bylo pro vás rizikové jakýkoliv kontakt prakticky a určitě to souviselo i s dalšími negativními věcmi, ale je naopak něco pozitivního, co vám pandemie přinesla, co byste ohodnotila jako vlastně pozitivní věc v tomhle období?
Určitě tam jsou i pozitivní věci, to musím říct, že jo. A je jich docela dost. V pozitivním slova smyslu nás to hodně zblížilo, jak s holčičkama, tak s rodinou, s přáteli. Více jsme si povídali, více jsme si hráli, tím, že jsme byli pořád spolu, tak jsme vyvíjeli nové aktivity, nové hry. Hodně jsme hráli šipkovanou, běhali jsme po lesích a opravdu tohle bylo pěkný, protože člověk v tom dennodenním stresu nemá na tyhle věci čas, ale takhle vlastně musel vymýšlet a nějak si z toho udělal takový stereotypy už zase a bylo to fajn, vznikla z toho taková ta klidnější atmosféra, když se věnujeme víc sami sobě jako rodina a i s rodiči, i když jsem je nemohla navštěvovat, tak jsme si jako častěji volali tím, že jsem o ně měla strach, protože oba jsou opravdu už staří, tak ten vztah se hodně posílil i s bráchou, se všema, i s přáteli, takže myslím si, že tohle bylo moc fajn a pořád to je, určitě ty věci přetrvávají a jsme si uvědomili, že záleží, jako ty hodnoty se zase trošku posunuly. A taky třeba moje starší dcera je šílená, když jdem do hračkárny nakupovat a různé tady ty hračičky a blbosti. Mladší teda ne, protože ta, jak má zrakový postižení, tak ta nefunguje na tom vizuálním světě. Ale starší je pro ten konzumní svět a tohle se taky hodně jako změnilo, protože přestali jsme nakupovat a utrácet peníze za blbosti a začalo to být takový jako normální, že jsme zjistili, že se bez spousty věcí jako obejdeme. To mně přijde fajn a takový ty online nákupy a věci nám zůstaly doteď, že člověk už nestrácí čas s takovýma nepodstatnýma věcma.
To je skvělý, že jste si v tom našla to pozitivum a že vám to dalo možnost se vlastně přiblížit k té rodině nebo obecně začít si vlastně víc vážit toho osobního kontaktu, toho, že se můžete vidět, že to pro vás není riziko, že můžete obejmout rodiče a cítíte se nějak jako bezpečně. Dobře. Vlastně vy jste to teď tak trošku jako zmínila, ale celkově ten svět se začal přesouvat do online prostředí. Online nákupy, online komunikace s přáteli, s rodinou. prakticky všechno, co se dalo, aspoň trošku eliminovat, tak se tak stalo a myslím si, že na tohle se hodně snažila reagovat i raná péče. Ve chvíli, kdy byly lockdowny a skutečně to riziko té nákazy bylo veliké, tak se raná péče snažila reagovat tím, že vlastně nabízela online konzultace. Jak se tato změna dotkla vás a jak jste to vyvnímala, tento přechod do online prostředí?
Ano, musím říct, že raná péče teda reagovala velice dobře, protože já jsem se bála, že o ty informace přijdu. Přeci jenom je to pro mě těžké s tou Laurinkou pracovat a získávat, jakoby posouvat se dál, když už něco umí, tak ty další kroky. Pořád, i když je to moje milované dítě, pořád mám pocit, že se mám strašně moc věcí, co učit s ní. A bála jsem se o to, ale musím říct, že raná péče opravdu to zvládla skvěle, že my máme výbornou poradkyni a ona Laurinku zná dobře, což hraje určitě taky velkou roli, že ona ví, jak Laurinka funguje, zná ji, má ji ráda a vlastně ten přesun do toho online prostředí na základě těch vědomostí o nás a o naší rodině nebyl vůbec těžký. Takže my jsme se dohodli, protože tam šlo o individuální přístup dost a věřím tomu, že s každým si to jako dělali tak, jak potřebovali, že jako ti klienti potřebovali, že my jsme se dohodli, že třeba Laurinku naučím natočím na video u různýho cvičení, pak to pošlu, oni to zkouknou s týmem poradkyň, protože oni se jich, což jako musím říct, že je úžasné, že jich se sejde víc a dívají se na to z různých jako úhlů pohledu, jak ta Laurinka reaguje, jak funguje a pak mě dávali zpětnou vazbu, tím, že my jsme si volali, já jsem si ještě třeba dochystala otázky, co bych potřebovala vědět a vlastně naše poradkyně Tereza Navrátilová nám volala zpátky a domlouvali jsme se, jaký postupy, jak Laurinka reagovala, co budeme dělat, jak ji rozvíjet a pokud jsem měla nějaké otázky, které nebylo možno momentálně odpovědět, tak si to poznamenala a byly mi poslány jak shrnutí, tak ty odpovědi nebo kontakty, které jsem potřebovala e-mailem, což musím říct, že je výborné, protože člověk přeci jenom, když má doma tu konzultaci, tak z jedné strany je to super, že je tam ten přímý kontakt, z druhé strany zapomene, takhle když to má v e-mailu sepsaný, tak musím říct, že je to fajn, že se k tomu můžeme vrátit a zase to má určitý jiný plusy. Takže tohle bylo super, jo, že vlastně a musím říct, že ve finále ten strach z toho, že přijdu o informace vůbec jako se nepotvrdil, protože všechno bylo v pořádku, jako bylo to fajn.
Skvělý. Já jsem ráda, že...
flexibilní teda, musím říct, že fakt jako hodně flexibilní a toho času, co mi věnovali, bylo spousta, jo. My jsme strávili prostě na telefonu spoustu času, tak za to jsem hodně vděčná.
Skvělý. On do jisté míry jste ten kontakt trošku zintenzivnil přesně, protože telefonování bylo rychlejší a přeci jenom ta snaha nahradit to online, respektive to osobní setkání byla velká. Tak to mám ale velkou radost. Vlastně vy to hodnotíte velice pozitivně, tu online konzultaci. Samozřejmě záleží na tom, která rodina je jak nastavená, ale pro vás osobně to byla určitá nebo možnost, která se v tu chvíli dala využít. Dokážete si představit, že s tím, jak pandemie nějakým způsobem ustupuje, doufejme, a že se situace zlepšuje, že by vlastně tahle alternativní forma zůstala jako běžnou složkou rané péče, že by to byla prostě možnost, která by se dala využít i v běžném životě, kdykoliv z jakéhokoliv jiného důvodu, než je prostě pandemie?
Určitě ano, určitě si myslím, že to jako za mě je to super, protože nastávají momenty, kdy máte jedno nebo druhé dítě nemocné, nebo vám do toho něco vleze, nebo musíte odjet k rodičům prostě pomoct, nebo tak a můžete se online připojit, ale fyzicky nemůžete být na sjednaném místě a v tuhle chvíli si myslím, že to je úplně výborná alternativa, která za mě je jako úplně dostačující a hodně nápomocná. A musím říct, že třeba jak je to u nás, kdy Terezka vlastně ona zná tu Laurinku velice dobře a umí s ní pracovat, takže ten online svět není tak cizí A je osobní víceméně, protože už se známe a není v tom problém, tak je to, myslím si, že je to fajn, jo. Ne pořád, ale v době, kdy to nejde, tak je to výborný, protože člověk, aby měl nový termín, tak musí zase čekat a má spoustu otázek a třeba je i zapomene, a pokud se to takhle vyřeší, tak je to určitě moc fajn. Určitě jo.
Skvělý. Já musím říct, že souhlasím naprosto s vaším tvrzením, že by ta poradkyně měla to dítě přece jenom dobře znát, nebo lépe, že by spolupráce už měla trošku být nastavená. My třeba tady v Praze jsme párkrát zkusili udělat vstupní jednání online, nebo vlastně nastartovat tu službu v nové rodině, protože tam byla potřeba a nechtěli jsme to odkládat. Ale musím říct, že tam možná to online prostředí bylo trošku překážkou, že se prostě ten poradce s tou rodinou dobře neznal. Takhle, když poradkyně zná Lauru, zná vás, ví, na co reagovat, ví, jak pokračovat, jak nastavit tu spolupráci, aby vám to vyhovovalo co nejlíp, tak pak určitě je to platná forma služby.
Určitě. Z druhé strany, a bych jako ráda řekla, že třeba když my děláme tu vizuální stimulaci s Laurinkou, kdy vlastně ona reaguje na cvičení, který vlastně Raná péče doporučí, různý světýlka, různý obrázky. I teda tam není jenom vizuální terapie, jo, tam je ergoterapie a různé, prostě spoustu věcí. Je to takový komplexní, ale musím říct, že třeba někdy to dítě nemá svůj den. Může to být třeba ten den konzultace nebo tak. A vlastně z ty konzultace potom, z ty osobní, nemusí být tolik prospěchu, protože to dítě buď to je uplakaný, nebo ten den zrovna jako ty děti s tím CVI to mají tak, že některý den třeba vůbec nevidí, jo. A některý den zase vidí daleko líp, že tam hraje prostě v tom jejich vizuálním, jakoby v tom přijímání vizuálních informací spoustu faktorů roli, jak oni zrovna jsou. A třeba i to, že člověk si může natočit to video, že ví, že to bude mít třeba ve čtvrtek online a třeba od úterka se snaží udělat nějaký video, kdy to dítě má nějakou relevantní zpětnou vazbu na to cvičení, tak je super, že vlastně tam to jde vidět a můžu to pak poslat, a i když to teda není osobní, ale myslím si, že právě když ta poradkyně to dítě zná, tak z toho hodně vyčte, a tohle si myslím, že je i výhoda, že v podstatě můžeme zachytit lepší moment než v konkrétní hodině, kdy to dítě může reagovat v podstatě líp, adekvátně.
Skvělý. Jo, děkuju moc za tohle shrnutí. Myslím si, že to je takový hezký výstup ve vztahu k pandemii a rané péči, že jsme vlastně díky tomu našli nový formát konzultace, tak a našli jsme v něm i nějaké pozitivum, přesně zachycení lepších momentů nebo prostě načasování si tohle opravdu konkrétních možností té rodiny. A to si myslím, že je zásadní. Tak jo, Lucie, moc vám děkuju za rozhovor.
Děkuju.
A myslím, že my se nyní připojíme k diskuzi a budeme reagovat na otázky diváků.
Dobře.
Lucie Jansildak. In an interview with Petra Mertlova, you are watching Yearly 8 online early childhood intervention conference entitled Ready for the Future, Visions and Challenges. And it is these current visions and challenges of early childhood intervention that Siegfried Holtschuster, a member of the board of Yearly 8, will now present in the following video.
Hello, my name is Siegfried Holtschuster. I'm a member of the board of Early 8 and co-treasurer, and I want to speak about enabling and empowering families in early childhood intervention, ECI, what we did, do and why. Early 8 was founded in 1988 by parents, representatives, professionals and scientists. Early 8 aims at improving the quality of life of children with special needs and their families, stimulating the growth and development of ECI services in Europe, promoting the values and ethics of ECI, increasing knowledge and expertise in the field of ECI. These aims are pursued by activities such as disseminating knowledge, experience and expertise in early childhood intervention to parents, professionals, researchers and practitioners, promoting the exchange of information experience and expertise in ways that are easily accessible to all by creating an European internet community, increasing the development of good practice, supporting existing ideas of good practice and networks in early childhood intervention, and acting as a reference system, initiating scientific research in the field of early childhood intervention, initiating discourse about training programs for professionals, supporting exchange of personnel, initiating and participating in projects, organizing conferences, seminars, and symposia, enhancing the public profile of early childhood intervention. The Myth of Sisyphus. Albert Camus wrote an essay with this title. In the essay, he says, "The absurd arises from the confrontation of the person who asks and the word who is silent in an unreasonable way. In general, a Sisyphus task means a task impossible to fulfill. This is the same with ECI. Early 8 has over 600 registered members from all over the world, and the homepage is early8.eu. We have 743 followers on Facebook in the moment. The three main focuses of Early 8 are project, policies, and training. First, we start with projects. The last projects we made are vocational educational training for early childhood intervention with 7 partners from 4 countries. That were Turkey, also United Kingdom, Portugal, and Luxembourg, Early 8. The aim was to strengthen the competences of physiotherapists about new approaches in early intervention. Then the Péče project with 5 partners from 4 countries, Croatia, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Early 8. The aim was to develop a training program to improve the implementation of family-centered early care practices for children with cerebral palsy. The next and last project was Agora, very important for the European countries, with 7 partners from 7 countries, including Slovakia, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Belgium, ESPD, and Luxembourg Early 8. The goal was to facilitate the implementation of strategies, ensuring the development of an appropriate ECI system at both local and national level. It is expected that as a result of the Agora Early Intervention project, practical guidelines and tools will be developed to stimulate systemic and legislative changes in the area of early childhood development and intervention in the partner countries. Recommended practices in early childhood intervention, the goal, a guidebook for professionals. These were the partners of Agora on this page. And at first, country reports and summary report has to be made from all participant countries. In the countries, the services are different. The last project was the Agora project, and the country reports and summary reports from all participant countries was necessary. In all 5 countries, the services in different sectors continue to be mainly focused on the child rather than families and their resources and stressors, as development system model of early childhood intervention emphasizes. However, country reports are also demonstrate an emerging understanding and appreciation of the role of families in the development of younger children, as well as the efforts to address the needs of the families and involve them at different stages on ECI service delivery. Among the main challenges is in the implementation of the development system model of ECI identified by the countries. The following factors are mentioned: lack of comprehensive overarching regulatory framework, limited financial resources, especially what concerns NGO service providers, limited opportunities for personal development, limited or absent cross-sectoral cooperation, lack of data and information, lack of professional and public awareness about ECI. A main goal was to translate a guidebook for professionals from the original Portuguese version to an English version, and also to translate it to the partner countries' languages as Bulgarian, Polish, Slovakian, Hungarian edition, and additional Ukrainian and Russian edition. Also until 2022, there will be finished the Spanish edition, the Greek edition, the Albanian edition, and the Turkish edition. Early 8 is supporting policy making in different countries. You see Ukraine meeting of the National Council of ECI in October 8th of 2021 with the ministers of health, education, and social services. You see on this slide the Kyrgyzstan meeting with SOS Children Villages. Kyrgyzstan was at September 2020 with ministers of health, education, and social services. There was also a meeting with Slovakian ministers, a roundtable with ministers of health, education, and social services in collaboration with a member of the European Parliament in June 2018. The next goal of Early 8 are trainings and dissemination of ECI recommended practices, supporting ECI organization and parents in Europe and beyond. Examples: Ukraine from July 2014 to July 2019, continuing our support to parents, including a Kharkiv conference and training the trainers for professionals. Trainings also in a project Agora with all the participant countries. In Serbia, trainings with Early 8 and ANIP in February 2020. In the COVID-19 situation, online trainings in Tajikistan in October 2020 and Bulgaria, January 2021. Early 8 is also participating in international conferences and webinars, also participating in the World ECI organization ECI. There was the last conference in 2019 in Australia, in Sydney. Now, at least, I will define ECI as Dunst was making it in 20,000, 2007, and 2017, together with Espes Sherwind, putting together an evidence-based comprehensive system to provide parents the time and energy and knowledge and skills to engage their children in everyday child learning opportunities that promote and enhance both child and parent confidence and competence. The shift of paradigms is very necessary. In early childhood, intervention has shifted from viewing the child with special needs as the key recipient of services to viewing the child's parents, caregivers, and family as the principal recipients of services and supports. It's made from Reva and Childress, 2015. Children with disabilities are entitled to active participation in all aspects of family and community life require equal opportunities in order to fulfill their rights and should be treated with dignity at all times. It's written in the General Assembly resolution in 2010, and there are another ones. Children with disabilities are best cared for and nurtured within their own family environment, and they should never be institutionalized solely on the grounds of disability. State parties must protect children with disabilities from discrimination and provide access to a range of services and supports which are specially designed to help them achieve their full potential. Research underlining contemporary ECI practices, experiences, learning opportunities that enhance development, how children learn, parent-mediated learning opportunities that enhance child and parent competence and confidence, parents are the key, and practitioner use of capacity building and family system practices, building resilience, from Dunst and S.B. Sherwin 2017. The child is not alone, the child is with his family and also with our community. And the 7 key principles of early intervention are: infants and toddlers learn the best through everyday experience and interaction with familiar people in familiar contexts. All families with the necessary supports and resources can enhance their children's learning and development. The primary role of a service provider in early childhood intervention is to work with and support family members and caregivers in children's lives. The early intervention process from initial contacts through transition must be dynamic and individualized to reflect the child's and family members' preferences, learning styles, and cultural beliefs. Individualized family service plan outcomes must be functional and based on children's and families' needs and family-identified priorities. The family's priorities, needs, and interests are addressed most appropriately by a primary provider who represents and receives team and community support. Interventions with young children and family members must be based on explicit principles, validated practices, and best available research and relevant laws and regulations. Thank you for our time together today.
And that was Siegfried Holzschuster at the end of the first part of the yearly 8 online Early Childhood Intervention Conference entitled Ready for the Future, Visions and Challenges. A very short break follows now, but as early as sharp 12 noon we will meet again with all previous speakers and with an algae of others in a live discussion. As you may well know by now, you can also send your questions into the chat. And just a reminder, please note that today's online conference is only a small tasting of the great yearly 8 event in May 2023 here in Prague. Let us hope we will have the opportunity to hold this international meeting in person. See you in 15 minutes.
Timor,
yes.
yes.
He is the most important.
Yes. Apologize for minister that he's not coming. Then the small video, and then we start with Timor.
Yep.
Thank you.
Did you get some questions from the chat?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh,
I don't know if there have been any now.
we should,
but I
we
just
should
asked like 10
prepare.
minutes ago.
Just
But
we have 20 questions, and we can say in our chat someone ask and give this. And we manage that our colleagues will put this question on the chat also, that they are really there.
Yeah.
If someone is searching, it will be on the chat.
And these questions should be answered by the board, by Anna and by Noor and the parents, especially.
Yeah.
How is the name of the Lucy? Is the name of
Lucy,
the
Lucy. Is the client
is
mother.
the parent, the client
the
mother,
parent.
and also Noor is also a client
Yes.
mother for background.
Her Sohor know about it, and also the Janet is mother.
Is also mother,
Yes.
and she is specialist for Karlstad mother.
Yeah. And
Snesana is at the University of Serbia.
Okay, so we,
he knows.
hello and warm welcome. This is not, we are not live yet, but we would like to test the sound, if we can hear you all. I would first ask, for example, Mr. Timor. Good afternoon. We appreciate you watching this yearly 8 online early childhood intervention conference entitled Ready for the Future, Visions and Challenges. The following people have joined our TV discussion here at the studio of Faculty of Social Sciences of Charles University in Prague. Czech Ombudsman's Deputy Magdalena Paulus, welcome.
Welcome. Hello.
Our morning speaker, member of the Yearly 8 Council, Siegfried Holchester. Hi.
Hello.
And of course, the conference organizer, director of the Prague branch of the Society for Early Childhood Intervention, and also organizer of today's conference and member of Yearly 8 board, Jitka Barlová. Good noon.
Hi.
Online, there are other honorable guests with us. Tim Moore from Australia. Hello to you, Tim. Hello to Melbourne.
Good morning or good afternoon, whatever it is.
That's true. You have 10 o'clock in the evening. We've heard from you just before we went live. From Portugal, President of Yearly 8, Ana Maria Serrano. Great to have you. Hello.
Thank you. It's great to be here too in this conference.
From the Netherlands, Yearly 8 Treasurer, Noor van Loon. Hello.
Hello to you all.
Perfect. And also Yearly 8 board members, Anna Bolognese Heimdal. Then we have
Hello, everybody.
hello. Then we have Snežana
Hello,
Ilic.
everybody.
Snežana.
Hello, regards from Serbia.
Perfect. Janet Persson. And Marga Cañadas Perez. Good day to everyone. And I'm also perfect.
Hello.
And I'm also happy to welcome parent representative Lucia Jalcindak and also Petra Mertlova from the Early Childhood Intervention Society in Prague, who join us online as well. Okay, I remind you that you can also send your questions to the chat during the discussion. We will try to choose the most interesting one and pose them to our participant speakers. We only have 1 hour, so it will not be so many questions to each of you, but we will try to have everybody appearing in the discussion. Another of our honorable guests should have been the Czech Minister of Labour and Social Affairs, Mr. Marian Jurečka. For obvious reasons, he can't join us as he is currently attending a State Emergency Security Council meeting due to the Ukraine crisis. However, he is personally deeply involved with the Society of Early Childhood Intervention, as you can see from this very short video taken this week in our Olomouc branch during his visit. Please.
Já bych chtěl poděkovat za dnešní návštěvu tady v Olomouci v Centru pro ranou péči. Já chci moc poděkovat všem, kteří tady pomáhají rodičům, rodinám, dětem, které tu pomoc opravdu potřebují, protože si myslím, že prostě podat pomocnou ruku, poradit, nasměřovat nebo někdy i vyslechnout, to je opravdu něco, co v pravý moment je velmi důležité. Takže já chci ještě jednou poděkovat, popřát mnoho energie, mnoho síly a ať se celému týmu, nejenom tady, ale i ostatním lidem v České republice, kteří tuto záslužnou práci dělají, daří.
That was Minister Jurečka pledging his support. Let's start with a question to Mr. Tim Moore. Tim, are there any statistics in Australia that show what percentage of children with special needs using the ECI services have been actually helped to make progress?
That's a very interesting question. The straight answer to that is no, but it's a complicated question. The Australian system was originally a state-based system, and then more recently a federal program has been introduced. And this is a hugely ambitious and visionary program called the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which is actually an insurance scheme for anyone who gets a disability.
Okay, thank you very much for this answer. Siegfried, have there been any obstacles arising from different perceptions or definitions of early childhood intervention within the international staffing of the project and the cooperation? Do you see even more potential for ECI services in the service system for people with disabilities?
Yeah. The first question it can be assumed that there are large differences between countries in the legislation regarding children with disabilities, despite the uniform human rights through the UN. There are also cultural differences, different cooperation between the ministers of health, social affairs and education. The training of professionals employed in early childhood intervention also varies. It's a big leap in changing paradigm from deficit-oriented services to family-centered early intervention, which has scientifically proven how efficient it is compared to conventional rehabilitative services. Parents should be involved in all that decisions. And on the one hand, it's important to organize early intervention offer regionally and to provide sufficient budget to ensure nationwide care. The earlier early support can start, the more efficiently one can see the progress in the development of the children concerned. In the long term, this saves enormous costs in the care of young people and adults. See the studies of Heckman.
Okay, thank you. Anna Serrano, please, when talking about the service in various countries, we come across two terms, ECI and early care. There can easily arise confusion, at least for us non-professionals. Could you please explain the difference?
Okay, yes, definitely they are different concepts. Early care means care for all children. Early childhood intervention means supporting children and families who are vulnerable for developmental problems, either because they have developmental disabilities or they are at risk for developmental problems. So this implies, of course, different types of support and intervention, as Tim Moore very well put today. The complex needs of families of children must be addressed by organized support between different groups of professionals. And there must be, of course, a collaboration among different professionals to support the complex needs of families and children. Early care means a more broad education concept that, of course, is very crucial for early years too, but these are different concepts. One is early childhood intervention and early care. Both are very, very important, but different. And unfortunately, there are some misconceptions I've heard throughout now Europe concerning these two concepts, and we hope that this does not make difficulty for policies to this confusion.
Thank you. We all hope so. Let's ask the Ombudsman Office. Magdalena, we all know that it is important for children to grow up in families. Can you tell us what the Ombudsman has in mind in this area?
Ombudsman, the public defender of rights, protects the children for a long time, and he resolves disputes with authorities. He deals with school agenda, and he monitors the rights of children with disabilities. So because we think that is very important for a child to live in his own family or biological family, we also visits, or the team authorized by Ombudsman visits the facilities where the children live, and for example homes for children or homes for children with disabilities. And after a series of the visits, Ombudsman published summary reports to inform the public. And in past, he stated that this type of facilities are not good for children, for their life. And we think that the early intervention helps families to have the child home.
Okay, thank you. Jitka, you are a member of Yearly 8 board. What is your role? Let's make it clear for everybody. And what can the Czech Republic be an inspiration in what for other countries?
Okay, so we work as team in Yearly 8. There are some parent representatives, there are some academics people, there are some representatives of providers of social work. So we all have some competencies, and we put it all together, and we support the ECI systems in different countries, and we disseminate the information about the family-centered, home-based and multidisciplinary work in ECI. So that's the question what we do, or about my role in Yearly 8. And the Czech Republic has more than 30 years of experience of ECI. We have the law system, we have the many providers in ECI and many experience with home-based approach. So like the other countries, we can learn from both of you, of all of us, to something new and support the other different countries.
Thank you. Noor van Leeuwen, we've heard before our short lunch break experiences of Lucia, the parent representative, but you are also a parent representative. Which experience do you perceive as key for a quality ECI service, please?
How much time do I have?
You have as much time as you need, maximally a minute.
Yes. Well, all the concepts that Tim has been speaking about and that Yearly 8 advocates also for, those are the key elements to really support families and strengthen them, all for the best of the development of their child. If I have to say it, really, that's my answer. But let people ask more questions if they want to have questions, also to all of us, please.
We've heard just a part of your speech because of the poor internet connection. But
I can't hear you.
Yes, that's it. That we have a poor internet connection.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
I have just a tiny feedback for Lucie. Petra and Lucie, it was a very great interview, and I don't speak Czech the Czech language, but I could hear that you said Laurinka.
Yeah.
Is this right?
Yes, it's right.
Yeah, and I think this is really the big difference between perhaps me and you, because it was Laura, and there was the mother of Laura, and there was Lucie. You said Laurinka. This is just a feedback, nothing else, because I think this is a really the core, one of the core for us professionals. It's something. It's something more. It's something stronger. It's something warmer. It's something. It's something that we need to think and to live in this. In the Costello and the other things and the visual impairments and so on and so on. So a big hug to Laurinka.
Thank you very much. It's very lovely. Thank you.
Remark, thank you. Lucia, you've been already asked to share your views, but I would like to follow on that. You have mentioned that the ECI gives you information how to work with your daughter. Can you tell us in what ECI helps you as a parent?
Honestly, I cannot imagine how it would be without ECI, because when I came there, Laurinka had like 9 months or something like this. She was really very small, and I was just struggling in life what to do, because her milestones and development were totally different than from my second daughter, who is older. And they really gave me leadership, like directions, security, encouraged me. It was really something which one parent who is lost with the kid's disability, because you love this kid but you don't know what to do with them, and nobody around knows, and you are just, I don't know, there is like panic, and and they know what to do because they have experience, and everybody is very lovely, and everybody is like, okay, calm down, we will help you and giving you guidance. It's wonderful. So they helped me a lot. And if I will summarize it, I will say leadership, knowledge, encourage, empathy, psychological support, and really they will help you to feel much stronger.
Amazing, a great answer, thank you. Janet, I know that you are also a parent representative. Which benefit of ECI do you see as the most important to the parents?
First of all, this must be a possibility for all parents. In Sweden, we can see that maybe you not get the challenge to have this support. I'm a mother of a daughter of Down syndrome, and we started to practice this very early. And I have a really good result now when she is 20 years old. And this family centered is also very important, that the professional listen to me, even if my dreams are bigger than you can dream on, but it believes in my thoughts and support me and my family. And the brothers of our daughter, they are also involved. And also I can see, I'm working with the same in my professional, and I can see this bringing to the family is so important. It is so important because the family is with the child for the whole life.
Thank you. Let's have a broader overview, and I would like to ask Anna Heimdal. I don't know if it's the specifically good question for you, but hopefully you can provide us with a great answer. Which states do you think could be an inspiration to others in early intervention, and why? What are your examples?
I'm sorry, but I didn't get the first part of the question.
Which countries do you think could be an inspiration to others?
For me, this was Portugal. Did you say country?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. For me, it was Portugal. I met Noor and Anna for a long time ago, and I was really inspired about the ECI system in Portugal, and the approach, the importance to have the parents in what we do. So for me, it's Portugal really a country, an example country.
Thank you. Well, this is maybe why the Yearly Aid has a president from Portugal. Anna.
I don't think it's just look at it. Guide. Tim mentioned also the guide. It's just not a book. It's a huge amount of work. behind the guide. It's not an usual book. It's not something you can buy. You have to create the book, and I think just that the book is translated in so many languages is an example that Portugal really shown the way. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anna, would you like to react?
No, please.
Can I add something, because you started the question about countries and examples, and I would like to approach it from a little different perspective. Yearly Aid started in the late 80s, and I'm in Yearly Aid from the beginning of 90s. And one of the main initiatives was looking for evidence-based practices, looking for research about what works. And in that sense, we've discovered over the years from many parts of the world, researchers and practitioners that worked on this. It's not one specific country, but it's that network of driven people with a focus on how and what works. And Australia and New Zealand and parts of the USA and other countries are good examples of that. I don't think, and in that sense, Portugal is a little bit exceptional, certainly in Europe, because it's one of the countries that managed over 30 to 40 years to really develop national legislation and a national system and national training of professionals on a high level. But in general, my perception, my personal perception is everywhere where we have been, in many countries, we encounter professional scientists, parents that are focused on this and looking and trying to build systems based on the concepts and the scientific research and evidence-based practices that are available.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think I took a little bit longer than 1 minute. But
I think what Nor said, because what happened in Portugal in 20 years was built on research, was built on what we knew it was the best way to organize services, and that was also a process that took a long time to get where we are. And we are still, of course, we need to improve a lot in our system. There is a lot of things that we still need to pay attention to improve. But the guide, as you mentioned, was also a work of a huge number of professionals that have been building all this idea of intersectoral communication between different ministries to make sure that we have everybody connected to support the complex needs of families and children. And so I also agree that we found this in our work now with different countries. We have been now for more than 10 years working with different countries in Europe, and we have found a lot of this energy in the different countries that we work with that are doing their best to build with their resources, within their own cultures, different cultures, totally different cultures. You know, in Europe we have a melted pot of different cultures and we are totally different. So we also need to address these needs, these different ways of looking at things, of doing things, of resources to do things. And that's where we should start, where we are, and build with what we have. And that's our philosophy, to approach and support other countries and other colleagues in this process.
Thank you. Sněžana, if you compare your experience from your country to this of Portugal, how far maybe are you to the Portuguese example, and what can bring you nearer in the future? What can be done?
Yes, in Serbia, we are witnesses of this. Nor and Anna told to everybody, and we had a conference yearly aid in 2017, and until that conference, we got virus and spread around all this ECI family-centered practice. Now, Anna said that we started where we were. And now we are in the process. We got knowledge, we got trainings, and 5 years later, we have 5 locations in Serbia providing ECI family-centered practice, and also 13 trainers, and now 270 participants in a process of training process in this ECI family-centered practice. We have 3 supervisors. We have now specialization in 1 university, and we are still learning and going, and we supervise but by yearly aid, and also we are supported. We have a huge support of UNICEF Serbia and Open Society Foundation also, and that's really important. And I feel in yearly aid, I feel like at home, and especially when you are in a starting process of doing this, because you are alone and you need support. And I feel now in this conference also like in one transdisciplinary and intersectoral and international ECI family centered team, and thank you for that.
We thank you. Marga Kanadas, please, what's your take on this? And so that I'm not posing the same question to you as well, if you can elaborate, how did Yearly Aid support its members during the pandemic?
In all aspects. When I started in early intervention, I remember I know to Anna, and Anna from Portugal, I think Portugal is the best place where they started with early intervention. So I think the support, when we work together, we can create more.
Thank you.
I have something to say, and I'm curious to listen also.
Please do. Tim?
You are muted, Tim. You are muted.
Can you hear me? Yes? Sorry. I say that. No.
Can I just say, I mean, the Australian... Can you hear me now?
No?
He would like to say something. We can hear him.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep. The Australian experience, we have early childhood intervention services working towards this common goal that's just been talked about for 50 years, but not had a genuine national system. And our story, our journey is a cautionary tale, because the journey that we have been following towards spreading the model of family-centered practice and all the things that we've been talking about has been disrupted by a new funding system. So I'm here to tell you that you need to be very careful about the governance system that you set up. You do need a governance system. You need a national system that with government commitment to funding, and you need national training, and you need a regulatory oversight, all of those things that you're working towards. The problem that has occurred in Australia is that they have introduced this extraordinary new national disability insurance scheme, which is a visionary scheme that no one else in the world has attempted, but they have made it a free market system, so that and they've poured a whole lot more money into it. There's a lot of money for children with disabilities, but they haven't ensured that there is a common training, that there is a fully fledged guidance, such as the early aid guide that we've been talking about. It's a free market, free for all, and let me tell you, money corrupts everything. And it is just, it's awful. We are now in the process of trying to rescue best practice from what has happened. A cautionary tale in your various countries as you move and attempt to emulate what Portugal has been so successful in doing, and perhaps rather freakishly, because the combination of circumstances which allowed it to happen, it's got excellent leadership, obviously, but also other factors, the timing and so on. We have not been so fortunate. So although we've got pockets of good practice and lots to offer, we don't have a system that we can hold up and say to you, here's a model that you can emulate.
Thank you. Any remarks on what Tim has just said?
I can just add that I was in presence under a consultation with parents, and this is really true. They were manipulated to choose some offers from the service providers, and this was really a strong experience. So the free market is really real. So yes, thank you for telling something about NNDS.
It corrupts both the parents' choice, because parents think that they've got to buy a service rather than develop capacity, and it corrupts the service providers. They're in the business of selling their product. It's so powerful that it's dismaying, and it indicates the weakness of the economic model that we have been pursuing in Western countries, perhaps particularly in English-speaking countries, in which the free market is regarded as the most efficient way of delivering services. And it isn't. We wouldn't get that wonderful example, the interview we had with Lucy, and you wouldn't have that kind of relationship, that service, if you'd been given money and you'd been told you can buy what you want. You would have thought that what you needed was therapists who were going to work with your child, and that isn't what you needed. What you needed and what you got was a therapist who worked with you, but money somehow changes everything in this. So please beware.
A very strong message. Let's turn the page a bit and yes, some more remarks.
Well, I totally agree with this. My son is also mid-30s, so it's a long time ago. But then in Holland, we got a system, and they called it the backpack for children with special needs that wanted to participate in regular education. And I always said at that time, please, I have enough on my hands. I don't need also the problem handles finances. Keep it away. We have, as family, as parents, you have enough on your hands. Instead of being also confronted with this kind of financial issues, it should stay out of it.
Thank you.
I will shut up.
No, you should not when you have something important to say. I would like to ask Siegfried now. Please, are there any other Yearly 8 projects in the future that would also involve ECI workers from the Czech Republic? And I intentionally ask you.
Yes, I first want to also say I agree totally with Tim, and I can see this situation also in Austria. The budget is lower than 10 years before, and money is changing everything. And I think that work of Early 8 is very important for the whole world, and especially for all the European countries and also other countries who are members here. Early 8 is constantly involved in interesting projects, and every member of Early 8, including of course the early intervention practitioners from the Czech Republic, as well as the various early intervention organizations, can and should participate in these projects, either as a partner in the project or as an information carrier when sharing existing experience in family-centered early intervention.
Thank you. Magdalena, what about early childhood intervention? Why is it important from the Ombudsman's point of view? The Ombudsman devoted himself to this social service in a separate research. What was the reason for this?
The reason was the defender's previous findings from other researches, or from the systematic visits, and as well from specific suggestions from parents. We were especially interested in the availability of the social service, of this social service. As I stated, the defender has been monitoring the rights of people with disabilities in the Czech Republic since 2018. And that is how the Czech Republic fulfills its obligations in this area. And under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So, and we think the early intervention is a very important service because it provides support to a child with the whole and to his whole family in the natural environment, and is part of the system that precedes institutional care. And which we know it's not suitable for young children. And we think that the support for the families as a whole is special because of its complexity and because of expertise that the early care counselors provide to families. And some results from our research, we found that the waiting times are very long, in some areas over 210 days, even more. And there are kept lists of people interested in this early intervention. Thank you. And the greatest burden is borne by providers who work with families with children on the spectrum of autism, or there is a combination with another disability. So what may help, we think that there will be stable and predictable financing to this social service, and there will be functional support from the region deputies.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting remarks. Jitka, the Yearly 8 conference is about visions, and challenges. We have talked a lot about the challenges of the pandemic. We now have new challenges unfolding, unfortunately. But let's move to these visions. What is the vision of the Czech society for early childhood intervention for the coming years? What are the goals that you would like to achieve?
The vision of Společnost pro ranou péči is not only to provide the high quality of ECI service, it's also about protecting the rights of families with children with special needs and dissemination of information to our society in the Czech Republic, and represent and protect the rights to participate of all of aspects of life like everybody else, in all opportunities what the life gives us. So we work also with not only with families but also with government and with the other societies to reach these goals.
Thank you. Let's turn to Petra. I hope you can still hear us. What was the most difficult thing you, as a branch manager, after the beginning of the pandemic, in terms of providing the service? What was the most difficult for you?
Hello to everybody. Thank you for question. And I think it's not a surprise that the hardest part was that we were left without information. So we got almost no support from the previous government, and we had to create our own methodological steps, which the consultants worked according to. And these steps concerned distance consultation, which were essential for the continuity of the services.
So that was the most difficult thing you experienced. If I may ask your colleagues from other countries, how the pandemic has affected your work and how it has changed the way you do your work. What was the most important and most difficult for you? Whoever wants to answer. Nobody? So maybe Janet? Or Tim? Tim is... Okay. Good.
Yeah, the thing is that you had to switch immediately, because we went into in Victoria, in Melbourne, we went into a lockdown. It was the longest lockdown anywhere in the world. It was a complete lockdown. So that meant that all the home visits that people were doing had to suddenly switch to being online visits. And fortunately, if an organisation such as the one that I'm involved with was already had all its staff already equipped with laptops already based in regional areas, then it was possible, and as long as the families had online equipment, it was possible to switch to delivering services online. And what was interesting about that experience was that if the parents had been previously experiencing a family-centered approach in which the early childhood intervention provider was working with the family to build their capacity, then the switch to online work was easy. They accepted that. But if they'd been receiving a service in which, although it might have been home-based, the therapist was coming in and working with the child, then the parents didn't want online service because they couldn't see the point. And so that's very instructive in itself, that if we work in a family-centered way, then the online form of service becomes a viable form of service, becomes either a complete alternative in some cases, particularly for in Australia, because we're so huge, we're a country the size of mainland Europe, and we have 25 million people. So we have a lot of families living in very isolated areas. So online work becomes a real possibility. Or we can use it as a hybrid form, a way of providing additional service. So in some ways, this is exciting. The next challenge for us with online support is to work out under what circumstances is it useful, for what families is it useful, and when can it be used as the main form of support, and when shouldn't it be used at all. That's the research agenda that we need to pursue now.
Thank you. I think Anna wanted to add something. Unmute.
With what Tim said, and it's important. I remember many years ago, before the pandemic, I remembered that in Norway, they have these tiny little islands in the north of Norway that are totally isolated. And the only way they could get to these families was through this video support. There was not such technology at that time, but they were already doing these video connections, and they were very successful in, I remember when we were in Norway some years ago in one of our conferences that we were listening about this, and it was very interesting to me that that meme was very useful to reach these families because they were so isolated in terms of geographical conditions.
Thank you. Somebody else? Nope. Then I would like to ask Tim again. Please, how is the ECI in Australia being evaluated? Do you use a standardized methodology for it? For example, after what period are evaluated the set goals with the family? This is an interesting topic that we would like to explore now.
It's certainly an interesting topic, and I can't tell you anything of use at all. So what happens under the National Disability Insurance Scheme is that the families are given a package with some goals that are worked out, and then 12 months later that'll be evaluated. This is not a sensible way of doing business. This is not a realistic way of evaluating goals. I think our view of how you should do goals and how you should evaluate a service is that you should do it on an ongoing basis. Because the family circumstances and the child's development, particularly in very young children, is evolving all the time. You can't have a fixed 12-month contract with fixed goals for families. This is a nonsense. We have what we sometimes call a fridge plan, a plan that is a one-page thing that you can put up on a refrigerator with a fridge magnet, and that you can change every fortnight. You can modify because that's how often. And how do you evaluate it? You evaluate it on the basis of whether the strategies that the family has chosen to use are able to be implemented. The family can actually do it. The family is comfortable with doing it. The child accepts it, and there are observable changes in the child's functioning and in the family functioning. That's an ongoing basis. You can use formal tools for that, but I'm in favour of much more informal ways of monitoring these things on a regular basis. But at a national level, we are nowhere. We've got no system for evaluating progress properly. That's another thing that needs to be fixed.
Thank you, Tim. it seems that we will fully use your precious time because you are our main key speaker, and there are questions that, from the public, from the people who are watching us, our stream. The first question for Tim, can you please tell us about how the cooperation in ECI actually arises between Australia and Europe?
Between Australia and
Europe, European countries, Europe.
And Europe. Anna and Noah rang me up. How else do you do things? Look, where we have had contact is through the International Association, the International Society of Early Intervention, that has been meeting every 4 years for the last 20 years. So some of us from Australia have gone to every one of those, and we have met people like Anna and Noah and lots of others, and built an international network of people who are the people that are the key thinkers. So we can call upon those people for advice and collaboration, and we invite them to our country, and we go and so that kind of international collaboration is critically important. I think it's immensely valuable. This is what we're talking about. This is our tribe from a professional point of view. You need your tribe to support you. Lucy needs a tribe as well, but she needs a personal tribe of family members around her. We professionals need a professional tribe of people who will nurture us and inspire us. So I think that's where we've made the connection.
Thank you. Sigrid had some remark just now. You were saying something. Yes, please. So let's give a word shortly to Siegfried and then to you.
I think the international network, I make it very short, the international network is the most inspiring thing for early childhood intervention. And there are new developments all over the world, and we don't have enough knowledge. There would be more knowledge in the future. So that's my...
Thank you. And I think Anna wanted to add something. Was it Anna? Nor?
You want to talk more?
I like the concept that Tim introduces of a tribe, and indeed it is one of the key elements of the tribe is that we are not only we all have to start working towards the same, but it's really about understanding the concept. Because all over the years, if you look at all the people we've worked with, it is a huge process of transformation, understanding really the concept and the impact of the concept on how you develop a system. But I like it to be part of a tribe, Tim.
Yes, the same with me, and I would like to say that in early aid we try to put both tribes together. So that's why we have parents and we also have other professionals together, because it's good to also be able to share this among this type of organizations that like we are in early aid. But I'm glad that Tim brought Vize, because by the way, and we are in this conference, I would like to send a message to all colleagues that are listening to us that we will have this Chicago conference. It will be held together this year with DEC from the States, the Division of Early Childhood, from Council for Exceptional Children, and it will be in September 2027, around that date, in Chicago. So I encourage all people to if possible, to be there and to present the work that you've been doing around this, and that's a great moment to meet the tribe of international world professionals in ECI, which is always a very nice moment to share ideas and experiences and talk about ECI, which is our main passion, as Marilyn says. It's her passion. Main passion is family, her family, and ECI, and it's the same with us, I think.
And we have today's conference as a proof that we are trying to put all the tribes together. What do you think about the idea, Itka?
I think that's really great. I feel the part of the tribe, and I'm very happy about it. And the international connection is really important, because nobody has all the information, and the sharing is the first principle of yearly aid, and sharing the knowledge with all the great people in the world with the same passion of ECI is very nice and easy, and to be a part of it, it's great.
Yeah, but how to do it and save money? This is the very last topic we would like to explore today. The treasurer is Noor van Loon, and my question is: can you explain in more detail how ECI can save costs for the future and still maybe create tribes?
Well, I'm the treasurer of yearly aid. I'm not a treasurer for the ECI budgets in the countries, but as Siegfried already said, Mr. Heckman has done extensive studies, and there are more people that studied it. Overall, but it's in my simple words, because I'm not that type of scientist. If you have a good system in your country and you invest in young children and build an inclusive society which will influence, and maybe the Czech mother can say something about it, but it's always an issue. If parents are overloaded, they drop out of work. It has consequences for society. If you build an inclusive system and those kind of consequences diminish, it in the end will turn out that you have to invest financially and in time, but it will generate less costs in the future for any society. But I can only, and Jitka knows about it, and she can share it also with the people in the Czech Republic. Mr. Heckman has done extensive and multiple research about this. And maybe Tim even knows other people that have done it, or Rané. But all the research shows you have to, if you invest in the beginning, it will generate lower costs after time passes.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy that I'm not the treasurer of that.
Thank you all very much. We had many people online, many people in the studio. Our hour is nearly over, and that means that our conference is slowly wrapping up. That was the very last answer in our discussion and the last contribution to today's Yearly 8 online conference entitled Ready for the Future, Vision and Challenges. I thank all the speakers, both in our studio and online, and above all, I thank all of you who have watched the conference for your attention and for your active participation. The conference was organized by the Early Childhood Intervention Society in the Czech Republic and by the European Early Childhood Intervention Association, Yearly 8. In a few days, you will receive a link to download the online conference certificate in the email you registered with. And even sooner, the recording of all the entire conference will be available on the websites of the Yearly 8 and also the Czech Society for Early Childhood Intervention. But as you are aware, today's event was just a preview. We are preparing an extensive 3-day international discussion and exchange of experience on May 15 to May 17, 2023, so within a year, 2023, in Prague. This conference should already take place classically, with your personal participation. You are all cordially invited. It's all from us today. Take care of yourself and of the children with special needs. Thank you.